Did you know that almost 60% of high-performing sales teams really prioritize professional development?
Wow.
It's pretty wild when you think about, the classic debate about whether great salespeople are born or made.
Right.
We found a really cool article that goes deep on this whole nature versus nurture thing in entrepreneurship.
Right.
But what we're really interested in today are the concrete things that you, our listeners, can take away from it
Yeah.
to, build a stronger sales team, one that can really bounce back from anything.
And, it's a question with real consequences for the way that we hire and train and develop our teams. Like, if the sales experts are just, born that way, why would we even bother investing in training them?
Right.
But this article, zeroing in on the idea of grit, really suggests that there's more to the story.
So let's get into that.
Yeah.
The article starts off by saying, hey, this idea of the born salesperson is pretty appealing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all know those people like the Steve Jobs and the Richard Bransons and the Elon Musks. They just seem to have this natural charisma and drive. But what's really interesting is that the article doesn't stop there.
Yeah, it doesn't, because while natural talent might give you a head start, it definitely doesn't guarantee sales success,
Yeah.
especially in the long run. Think about how much the market changes all the time.
Right.
The new technologies that are always coming out, and the fact that what customers want is always evolving.
Yeah.
Even the most naturally talented salesperson is going to have to adapt and change.
So what separates those who are just good for a little while from the true sales experts?
Right.
The article says that experience plays a huge role. And this is where we start to see some really useful takeaways for our listeners.
And this isn't just about the amount of time you've spent out there selling.
Okay.
It's about getting the right sales training, having good mentorship programs, and most importantly, creating a work environment where people are encouraged to learn from both their wins and their losses.
That makes so much sense when you think about building great teams.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just throw people into the deep end.
Mm-hmm.
You got to give them the skills and the support to handle the challenges of sales and to really grow.
Yeah, and one of the most powerful tools for that is developing what the article calls a growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
This idea comes from the work of Carol Dweck, who found that believing in your ability to keep learning and improving is super important for success in any field,
Right.
but especially in sales.
I mean, think about it. Sales is all about resilience.
Right.
You're constantly facing rejection, having to push through tough deals, and always adapting your approach.
And a growth mindset is what lets the sales experts see those setbacks not as failures, but as chances to learn and grow.
Okay.
It's what helps them stay motivated and curious and always be getting better at what they do.
So we have this idea of nurturing talent through experience and building a growth mindset.
Right.
But the core of the article, the thing that really hit home for me, is the emphasis on grit.
Definitely. The article defines grit as passion plus sustained perseverance. And it's that sustained perseverance, that ability to come back from setbacks, that's so crucial in the high-pressure world of sales.
The article uses some really great examples to show this. It talks about Walt Disney's early business failures
Okay.
and J.K. Rowling getting rejected by publishers over and over.
Right.
It reminds us that even the most successful people hit some huge roadblocks.
Yeah.
And it was their grit, their refusal to give up, that ultimately let them reach their goals.
And what's really powerful about this idea of grit is that it's not something you're just born with or you're not.
Okay.
It's something that you can cultivate both in individuals and in entire teams.
And that's where things get super interesting for our listeners.
Exactly.
Because if we can figure out how to help our sales teams develop grit, we can unlock a whole new level of performance.
Absolutely.
So let's jump into those actionable takeaways, starting with how important it is to set clear long-term goals.
Yeah, that's key. Grit thrives when there's a purpose, a direction for all that energy. And for sales teams, that means setting ambitious but achievable targets, breaking them down into smaller milestones, and celebrating progress along the way.
This is about more than just setting quotas.
Right.
It's about making sure those goals line up with the personal goals of your team members,
Yeah.
helping them see how their work contributes to the bigger picture. It's about giving them something to work towards, something to keep them going when those inevitable challenges pop up.
And it's about creating a culture of accountability where goals aren't just set, but they're actively tracked, reviewed, and adjusted as needed.
Right.
This builds a feeling of ownership and shared purpose within the team, which is essential for building that sustained perseverance we talked about.
But it's not just about setting goals.
Right.
It's also about how we deal with failure.
We need a real change in how we view failure.
Okay.
We have to move away from punishing mistakes and towards looking at them as opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
Like the article says, failure isn't the opposite of success, it's a stepping stone.
So instead of being afraid of failure,
Right.
we need to create an environment where it's seen as a chance to learn and improve.
Uh-huh.
We need to encourage our teams to take calculated risks, to try new things,
Yeah.
knowing that if they stumble, they'll be supported, not penalized.
And that takes a lot of trust within the team.
Yeah.
Leaders need to create a space where people feel like they can admit their mistakes, talk about their challenges and ask for help when they need it.
Which brings us to another big takeaway from the article.
Okay.
The importance of building a strong support network.
Right.
This is where mentorship programs can be so helpful. Pairing up newer salespeople with those who've been around the block.
Yeah.
People who can offer guidance and share their insights and help them through those early career hurdles.
It's like creating a network of grit mentors within your company.
Oh, I like that.
People who not only have this quality themselves, but can help others develop it too.
Yeah, it's about fostering a culture of collaboration where everyone shares what they know and feels like they can contribute.
And remember, this support network doesn't have to be limited to just internal mentorship.
Right.
Encouraging people to go to industry events, workshops, even online forums can give them valuable chances to learn, network, and make those connections that help them keep that grit going in the long run.
We've talked a lot about how to build grit at the team level.
Yeah.
But the article also has some good advice for individuals who want to cultivate this quality in themselves.
One of the main things it says is to actively look for challenges.
Okay.
Don't avoid tough tasks or situations. Embrace those opportunities to push yourself to step outside your comfort zone.
Because that's where the real growth happens, right?
Exactly. When we're pushed beyond what we think we can do, that's when we discover what we're truly capable of.
I like that.
Every time you overcome a challenge, every time you get through something difficult, you're making that grit muscle stronger.
The article also talks about how important self-reflection is. Taking the time to look at your own performance, figure out your strengths and weaknesses, and set personal goals for improvement.
That ties back to that growth mindset we talked about earlier.
Right.
It's about believing that you can always get better, that you're not limited by what you know how to do right now, and that there's always something new to learn.
And it's about being proactive about your own development.
Yeah.
Not waiting for someone to tell you what to do, but looking for opportunities to learn and grow yourself, whether that's reading industry stuff, attending conferences, or even taking online courses.
And lastly, I think it's really important to have a good support network outside of work, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Surround yourself with people who believe in you, who encourage you, and who will be there for you when things get tough.
Because let's be real, sales can be a tough gig.
It can.
Having that support system, both at work and in your personal life, can make a huge difference.
It's about having people who will pick you up when you're down, who will celebrate your wins with you, and who will help you see the bigger picture when you're feeling lost.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From understanding what grit really is to exploring how to actually build it, both within teams and individuals.
Right.
But what does this all mean for our listeners?
Yeah.
Why should sales leaders, hiring managers, and executives care about grit?
Because in sales, grit is what sets people apart.
Yeah.
It's the quality that separates the good from the great.
Okay.
It's what lets salespeople handle tough times, bounce back from rejection, and ultimately find real lasting success in sales.
It's about having the tenacity to keep going when others quit the ability to learn from setbacks.
Yeah.
And that unshakable belief that you can succeed.
And that's where we wanted to really dive into this topic.
Yeah.
We think that by understanding the power of grit and taking concrete steps to help your sales teams develop it, you can reach a whole new level of performance.
And that's what we're all about here.
Exactly.
Giving you actionable insights that you can use to build a more successful and fulfilling career in sales leadership.
Right.
Now, one thing I found really interesting in the article was this connection between grit and adaptability.
Yeah, it makes sense when you really think about it. The sales world is always changing, New technologies pop up, competitors come and go, what customers want is always evolving. To do well in that kind of environment, you need people and teams that can adapt, that can change their approach, and that are always willing to learn new skills.
And that's where grit is so important. It's that drive, that determination to find a way even when you're not sure what the next step is. It's about seeing change as an opportunity, not something to be scared of.
The sales experts are the ones who can roll with the punches, learn from their setbacks and come back even stronger. That's what grit looks like in action.
So we've seen that grit is this like essential ingredient for sales success. It's about perseverance and resilience and being able to adapt. But the question that really stuck with me after reading this article is, can you actually teach grit? Can you take someone who might be kind of a quitter by nature and turn them into a gritty, determined sales professional?
That's the big question, right? And while the article doesn't give us a definite answer, it does suggest that you can create a workplace that helps people develop grit.
And that brings us back to a lot of what we've already talked about. Setting clear goals, seeing failure as a chance to learn, building a strong support system. These are all so important.
It's about building a company culture where grit is valued, where it's celebrated, where it's seen as something that really drives success.
And it's about giving people the tools, the support, and the guidance they need to develop those grit muscles themselves.
Exactly. It's not about just telling someone to be more gritty. It's about giving them what they need to build that quality within themselves.
So to wrap things up, let's boil this down to a few key things for our listeners to remember. First, we got to get rid of this myth of the born salesperson. Sales success is something you build, and grit is the foundation of that success.
Absolutely. And by focusing on those practical strategies we've talked about, like creating a growth mindset, building a culture of continuous learning, seeing failure as a chance to learn, and having strong support networks, you can help your sales teams develop grit and unlock a whole new level of performance.
And here's one last thought to leave you with. Think about your own team, your own sales culture. What's one specific thing you can do this week to encourage a growth mindset? How can you help your team embrace challenges, learn from their mistakes, and develop that all-important grit?
It's a journey, not a destination. And every step you take towards building grit brings you closer to helping your sales team reach their full potential.